Hello there and welcome back. You are listening to the Photography Made Simple podcast. With me, your host, Audrey-Ann. I am the founder of Live Snap Love, a photography education website that aims to give you all the tools, resources, and inspiration you need to help you capture the beauty of your days through photography. Now, today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about Lensbaby lenses. Maybe you have heard people talking about Lensbabies and wondered what on earth they are or why you might even want one. Or maybe you have been thinking about adding a Lensbaby to your collection, but not sure if they are the right choice for you or which one you should get. So for the last couple of weeks, I have been researching Lensbaby lenses. I have actually coveted one for years because I've seen various images from photographers that I admire and follow, and they've been taken with Lensbaby. So I've kind of always had a hankering to add one to my collection, but I was never sure which one I wanted. And you get so many different options of the types and how they mount onto your camera that, to be honest, it was a little bit confusing and overwhelming. So the last couple of weeks, I've actually been researching them. I've been looking into the different types you get available, what each one looks like, and so on, so that I had a better understanding of what type of Lensbaby I would want if I were going to get one. So in this week's episode, I wanted to share all of that research, all of that homework with you. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on Lensbabies, far from it. So this is simply me sharing my research with you so that if you were interested in getting a creative lens that is out with the normal range of lenses, then you'll learn a little bit more about it. And if you already had your eye on a Lensbaby but like me, we're just confused about the different options, hopefully this will help it make a little bit more sense and narrow down the choices. So we'll be diving into all things Lensbaby. We'll look at what they are, some of the different types you get, the different effects that you will get with them, how you can mount them onto your camera, the different options, who they are for, what to watch out for, and why they might be a perfect addition to your camera bag, or why they might be something that you definitely just want to leave in the shelf. So let's get started right at the very beginning with what Lensbabies are. So Lensbaby is a lens manufacturer. Just like Canon manufactures lenses, or Sigma or Tamron, Lensbaby is the same. However, they are different in that they only really do creative lenses, mainly tilt shift focus lenses, where you have one small area of sharp focus and the rest of it is surrounded by fading blur. So they give you different looks and effects based on which one that you get, but they are all kind of quirky. They all give you this sort of shift in focus look to them and then surrounded by blur. They're really very, very unique. It's not giving you a standard look like a standard lens. So as a result, they're very creative lenses, and immediately that will put a lot of people off. If you're the type of person who really likes, everything very sharp in your images, you are going to hate Lensbaby lenses. You can probably stop listening right here because they give you this quirky, creative, blurred look to your images that is unlike anything that you can get with standard lenses. So that's what a Lensbaby is. It is a type of creative lens. Now, as I said, you get lots of different effects. So I'm going to run through them just now. So basically you get 4 main effects. They have different names, but 4 main effects. So the first one is sweet. Now this is when you get a round spot of sharp focus surrounded by soft blur. So if you can imagine when you take an image with a really wide aperture and you get that blurry background, imagine that you have that in a sort of circle around one point of focus. That is the sweet. And that allows you to draw attention to one part of the scene. You can change the area that spot of focus is on, whether that be in the center, to the left, to the right, but you'll focus on something, have that in sharp focus, and then all of the area around that will be soft and blurred. The next one is the edge. And the edge works in the same way in that you get this blur, but instead of that having a circular spot of sharp focus, it is a slice. So if you can just imagine that you have a slice or band of focus in the frame, and then either side of that band of focus is the soft blur. So it's really like a strip of focus. You'll often see this used with landscape or architectural photography and city scenes as well. It can make things look miniature. It looks fantastic, but it's essentially a strip of focus. So the sweet is circular focus, edge is a strip of focus. Then we go to velvet, and this is a soft focus effect. So instead of having one area sharp and the rest of it soft and out of focus, the entire image has this soft, ethereal, slightly out of focus look. Think having like a vintage soft lens and you'll get the idea. And the next one is the twist. And this is when you have, again, one area in sharp focus, but instead of the area around it just being soft and blurred, it has a kind of twist effect to it. It's almost like circular. It looks like almost a spinning top has gone around it and given you this sort of circular blur. It's quite hard to explain, so I'll try and see if I can get some images and pop them on the show notes. But that basically, you can probably guess, it just looks like somebody is twisting the bokeh in the background. So it gives a really interesting effect. So that is the four main effects that you can get. Sweet, which is that circular spot of focus surrounded by blur. Edge, which is that strip of focus with blur on either side of it. Soft focus or velvet, where everything is in soft focus. And then twist, where you have, again, one area sharp, but the area around it looks like it's twist bokeh. It's like circular bokeh. So that is the main effects. And once you've decided on the effect that you want, whether you want that sweet spot or you want the edge effect or you want the twist effect, you then need to decide how you want to attach that onto your camera because you have different options available. The first is standalone lenses. In other words, they go directly onto your camera body just like you do with your normal lenses. So you buy the lens and you attach it to your camera. Very simple. The other version is what's known as an optic swap. And for this, you get what I'm just going to call an adapter called the Composer Pro, and that attaches to your camera body. And then you can swap out different optics. So that is how the two different ways kind of mount onto your camera. You can either get them to go directly onto your camera body, or you can buy this sort of adapter called the Composer Pro, and then you put different optics on top of that. So let me quickly run through those as well. So for standalone lenses, for example, you can get the Velvet and you get them different focal lengths like the 28, 56 or 85. That's just all your different focal lengths. And that gives you that out of focus effect. For the sweet spot of focus, they don't call it sweet on the standalone. They call that Sol. So you get that as the Sol 45. And if you had a micro four thirds camera, you would get the Sol 22. You can also get the twist, where you get that twist of soft focus instead. And you also get one called a trio, where you can get 3 different versions in one. So you can see that you can get most of those effects as standalone lenses. The only one you're not getting there is the edge. So you'll get the Velvet, where everything is slightly soft and blurred. You'll get that sweet spot of focus surrounded by blur with the Sol standalone lens, and then you can get the twist where you get the sweet spot of focus, but the blur is kind of circular. Gives you a nice little twist effect. Now, as I said, those will all go directly onto your camera. The other version is to get the optic swap. And then what happens here, as I said, is you get this thing called the Composer Pro. So you buy that, and then you get different optics that fit on top of that. So you will get the Edge 35, you get a 50 and an 80, again, different focal lengths, and that gives you that strip of focus. You'll get the Sweet, which again is a little circular area of focus surrounded by blur. And again, you'll get that in different focal lengths, 35, 50 and 80. And then you get soft focus, which is the other name for velvet. And you also get something called double glass, which gives a very sort of unique look to it. It's hard to describe. It's basically like you put two pieces of glass in front of it and one is slightly out of alignment than the other one. It's a very unusual look. But you can see that, again, it's the same idea, or it gives you the same look. It's just how it's mounted that is a little bit different. So it really depends on whether you just want a lens that you can attach to your camera as normal, or you want to get this Composer Pro and then you get the optics that attach onto it, and you just swap out the different optics. Just to give you an idea of price, if you wanted, let's say the Suite 35, to buy the Composer Pro, the adapter so to speak, and then the Suite 35 optic, you'll be around $350. If you went for the standalone lens of that, which would be the Sol 45, it's around $200. So there's a difference in price, but if you're really into Lensbaby and you intend to use lots of different optics, then getting the Composer Pro and then swapping out your optics is the better bet, because then you'll be able to add on different optics for cheaper, if that makes any sense. So once you've bought the Composer Pro, you've bought it once, then you'll just need to add on the different optics on top of that. So it really does depend how far you intend getting into Lensbabies and getting different types of creative lenses. Okay, so hopefully that made sense about what a Lensbaby is and some of the different types of Lensbabies you can get and the look each one provides. So who would use these types of lenses? Well, really all kind of photographers can use them, but you have to want that creative, quirky look to your images. So say if you want something that's a lot more traditional, these lenses are not for you. But they can be used for non-traditional portraits. Again, you can put someone's face in focus and then have that twisted blur or soft blur around them. And they can be used not particularly for portraits, but more for environmental portraits as well. Again, you've got someone in the frame and you've got that area of blur around them. But they can also just be used for capturing your day-to-day life. So they can make something that is generally quite simple look a lot more unusual. Just even capturing the edge of a tree can look fantastic. They also look great for flower photography. Again, it really helps the flowers stand out and give you that really unique look to your images. And a lot of people use them for particularly the edge for like landscape and architectural photography as well. So if you like to dabble in a bit of everything and you like that creative look to your images, then a Lensbaby is a good creative lens. It will allow you to create images that you wouldn't otherwise be able to create. So if you're feeling a bit stagnant and a bit bored and you want a new challenge and a different look to your images, then they are a great addition to your camera bag. Now, as I say, I don't have one, so I cannot give you any of my own examples. What I will do is I will link to the Lensbaby site in the show notes for this episode and around where you're listening to this podcast, and go and check them out. They have examples of all their different lenses and you can see the look that you get from each one. And I would start with that, and then you'll probably be able to buy refurbished as well. You certainly can from the Lensbaby site, and you can often get them secondhand from different stores like B&H if you're in the States, or MPB Photographic if you're here in the UK. So that is who they are for, the different types of photography they can be used for, basically anything. But there's a few things that I really want to make you aware of before you go ahead and buy these, because they are definitely not for everyone. So one of the things that you need to know is that all Lensbaby lenses are manual focus only. So if you don't like getting focus yourself, you literally have to twist the ring on your lens. Your autofocus won't work. You have to move the focus ring yourself to get the area that you want in focus. So do keep that in mind. If you're not into that, you're not going to enjoy it. The second thing to bear in mind is that these lenses are designed with having this soft effect in mind. If you are the type of person who wants sharpness in all areas of your image, these are definitely not for you, because they have this real quirky, creative look to the image where you are going to get lots of the area in blur. Another thing to be aware of is that they are all prime lenses. So as I said, you get different focal lengths. For example, you'll get the Sweet 35 or the Sweet 50 or the Sweet 80, all different focal lengths, but they don't zoom. So it is a fixed focal length. It is all prime lenses. And the final thing to consider is that these can be a little bit challenging to use, because what you're essentially doing is the lens itself tilts. It shifts and it tilts on a sort of axis. So you essentially tilt the lens to get the area that you want to have in focus, whether that be in the center or the edge or the top left or the bottom right or wherever. You tilt the lens in that direction, and then you've got to turn the focus ring to get the focus onto that particular area. It is a little bit confusing. I have used one, I just haven't got one, and it can be a little bit challenging to use. So again, as I say, if you were looking for a challenge, these can be a good challenge, because they are going to get you thinking about scenes in a whole different way. So this definitely wouldn't be a lens that I recommend that you start out with. So keep all those things in mind. It's manual focus. There's definitely no autofocus. You're going to get a lot of blur. So if you don't like that, you're not going to like the Lensbaby system. They are prime lenses. In other words, you've got to move with your feet, and they work on this tilt shift. So you have to move the lens into position and then do the manual focus, which can make it a little bit more challenging. So keep all of that in mind when you're deciding whether a Lensbaby is for you. So who would I recommend these lenses for? Well, to begin with, as I've just said, I would not recommend these for new photographers. Really stick with your original lenses. There's definitely going to be a much more worthwhile investment for you, and they're going to be easier to use. The people I would recommend this for is people who already have a decent lens collection, but are looking to add something a bit quirkier, a bit more creative into their lens collection. And you'll have some experience of, working with manual focus, and you're happy to do those things. So I wouldn't recommend them for beginners. Those who are more experienced and who are looking for something more creative and a little bit of a challenge might enjoy these lenses. For me, I think I am going to get the Sol 45 as a little bit of a beginner gateway into the world of Lensbabies, see if I enjoy it. If not, off it will get popped back up onto a second-hand site. So I wish I could give you some more information about how they actually work and whether they're good and how difficult they are. As I say, I've only tried one. I haven't really spent any time with it. If I do get one, and I do, then of course I will be back with an update and letting you know how I get on with it and whether I enjoy it or not. So I hope that all of that made sense to you. As always, if you do have questions, feel free to drop me a line. You can also get in touch with me on social media. So the only reason I'm still on social media is to give you a way of getting in contact with me. So you'll find me on Facebook and on Instagram as Live Snap Love. All one word, Live Snap Love, all together. And you'll find me there on Instagram. And again, you'll find a link to all of those around where you're listening to this podcast. So as always, thank you so much for being here and for listening to this podcast. If you are enjoying it, if it's giving you some ideas, if it's giving you inspiration and knowledge, then I would be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other people find the podcast and understand whether the podcast is something that is worth their time listening to. So I will see you again, same time, same place next week. Until then, enjoy researching Lensbabies. Bye for now.